You know Saladin, you know Jerusalem, you know the mercy, you know the legend, but nobody ever asks the question that changes everything. How did Saladin get there? Who built the army he used? Who united the broken Muslim world before him? Who spent 30 years bleeding, fighting, sacrificing so that one man could walk in and finish the job? History gave Saladin all the credit, but behind Saladin, there was someone else. Stay till the end, because when you hear what this man built in 30 years, you will never look at Saladin's story the same way again. His name was Noor ad-Din, Mahmud Zangi, and without him there is no Saladin, no Jerusalem, no legend, a world on fairer close. Your eyes and imagine the Muslim world in 1146. The Crusaders have been sitting in Jerusalem for nearly 50 years. They have built kingdoms deep inside Muslim territory. The Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Tripoli, the Principality of Antioch, fortresses rising on Muslim land, and the Muslim rulers surrounding them, fighting each other, alliances breaking overnight, brothers betraying brothers, rulers sending armies against their Muslim neighbors instead of the enemy in their midst. It was not just political weakness, it was a civilization that had forgotten who it was. Men who had fought each other for years now needed to stand in the same line, pray for the same goal, fight for the same cause. But here is what nobody talks about. Nobody was making that happen until one man decided it was his responsibility. One day his father was there, the next he was Joani Nur ad-Din. Grew up watching his father Imad ad-Din Zangi fight. His father was fierce, uncompromising. The man who had already begun pushing the Crusaders back, who'd retaken Edessa and sent shockwaves through the Christian world. The son watched, learned, prepared. Then in 1146, his father was assassinated. One day, he was there, the next day, gone, and suddenly, a 28-year-old had to lead a war. No preparation, no gradual handover, no time. The Crusaders looked at this young ruler and saw opportunity. A new king, untested, probably weak, probably scared. They started moving. But here is the moment nobody expected the fight, and nobody saw. Siomin Gistal crashed. Dust filled the air, and at the front of the Muslim army was Noor ad-Din himself, not watching from a safe distance, not sending generals while he sat in a palace, leading, personally, from the front. Within months of his father's death, he was already on the battlefield, already winning, already showing the Crusaders they had made a catastrophic miscalculation. He retook lost territories. He fought battles on multiple fronts simultaneously. He moved with a speed and decisiveness that left his enemies constantly off balance. But here is what made him truly different from every other fighter of his time. After the battle, he went back to the mosque. He prayed. He studied. He sat with scholars as a student, not as a king demanding to be impressed. Scholar in the mosque, lion on the battlefield. That combination, that rare, extraordinary balance, is what made Noor ad-Din Zangi unlike anyone else. In his world, stay with me, because this is where everything starts to connect. Steel and prayer. The campaign's BGI and the Crusaders expected him to make mistakes. Young rulers always did. He didn't. Battle after battle, Noor ad-Din fought, with a strategic intelligence that stunned his enemies. He didn't just attack, he chose his moments. He studied terrain. He understood that patience on the right day was worth more than aggression on the wrong one. But here is what nobody talks about. He was fighting two wars at the same time. One war with swords, against the Crusaders on the battlefield. One war with ideas, against the division and hopelessness inside the Muslim world itself. And the second war was harder. Every Friday, in every mosque in his territory, the people prayed for Jerusalem. He made sure of it, not as a political order, as a genuine shared belief that Jerusalem was not lost. It was waiting year after year. Battle after battle, he kept that fire burning, and this is the moment that changed everything. The court where even the poor could challenge the Kianji here is something that will genuinely shock you. Noor ad-Din built a court, the Dar al-Adl, the house of justice where any person could bring a complaint against anyone. A farmer could challenge a military commander. A poor widow could challenge a government official. And Noor ad-Din himself sat in this court, personally, and judged cases against his own people. Imagine that. A medieval ruler who built a system where ordinary people could complain about him, and he took it seriously. He didn't just talk about justice, he built it into stone. He funded mosques, schools, hospitals, across his entire territory. Not for show, but because he genuinely believed a ruler's job was to serve, not to take. His clothing was plain. His food was simple. His palace was not filled with gold. But here is what his territory was filled with. Trust the people didn't. Just respect him. They believed in him. And that belief, that deep, genuine trust between a ruler and his people, was the real foundation of everything that came next. The young soldier, nobody I notai said around, this time a quiet young man, entered his service, Kurdish, serious, more interested in religious studies than military campaigns. Someone his own family had pushed towards soldiering rather than scholarship. Nobody paid much attention to him. But Noor ad-Din noticed something. He gave him small responsibilities, watched how he handled them, gave him harder ones. Watched again. The young man never broke his word. He treated soldiers under his command with respect. When he had to make a hard choice, he chose the right one, not the easy one. Years later, this young man would rise from his army, a man the world would call Saladin. But here is what history never says loudly enough. The mercy Saladin showed at Jerusalem, he learned by watching Noor ad-Din. The justice Saladin built into his government, he learned from Noor ad-Din's court. The simplicity Saladin lived with, he learned from Noor ad-Din's example. Saladin didn't invent those values, he inherited them. The strategic mast ex-Dirocca now. Here is where Noor ad-Din showed something beyond just courage or piety. He showed genius. He looked at the map of the Crusader kingdom surrounded by Muslim territory on three sides, and he saw what others missed. Egypt was the key. Whoever controlled Egypt controlled the resources, the wealth, the agriculture, the manpower needed to sustain a real campaign against the Crusaders. Without Egypt, every Muslim effort would always fall short. He sent Saladin, and his uncle Shirkuh, to Egypt on a series of difficult campaigns. But what nobody talks about is that this was Nur ad-Din's strategy, his vision. His plan, Saladin was the sword, but Nur ad-Din's hand was holding it. By 1169, Egypt was secured. Syria, Egypt, united, the trap around the Crusader. Kingdoms was closing. And this is where the story breaks your heart. Why he never reached. Jusama 1174. Damascus, Noor ad-Din Zangi, falls ill not on a battlefield. Not in some dramatic final stand. Just ill, quietly, in his own city, and in May 1174, he died. He was 56 years old. The city he had prayed for every single day of his adult life, he never saw it freed. The cause he had kept alive for 30 years, he did not live to see it finished. 12 years. He missed it by 12 years. Just 12 years before, Saladin stood at the gates of Jerusalem. 12 years before the moment that all those battles, all those campaigns, all those mosques and schools and courts had been building toward. He gave everything, and history gave him almost nothing in return. But here is what nobody can take away from him. The legacy that made everything possible when Saladin stood at the gates of Jerusalem in 1187, the army he used. Nur ad-Din built it, the united Muslim world behind him. Nur ad-Din created it, the strategic control of Egypt that made Hattin possible. Nur ad-Din's plan, the values that made Saladin show mercy instead of massacre. Nur ad-Din lived them first. History remembered the man who finished the story, but it forgot the man who made the story possible. He had power, but chose justice. He had wealth, but chose simplicity. He had 30 years, and spent every single one of them on something bigger than himself. He didn't build monuments to himself. He built a road, and then he died. Before he could walk to the end of it, men who had fought each other for years stood in the same line because of him. A civilization that had forgotten its purpose remembered it because of him. A young Kurdish soldier nobody noticed became the legend the world never forgot because of him. Without Noor ad-Din Zangi, there is no Saladin, no Jerusalem, no legend. History forgot his name, but now you won't.